This is so typical of what the Democrats do now after your policies have transparently failed and led to the deaths of millions of Americans. Now you say you've never heard of defunding the police. Your own report recommends it on page after page after page. Let me ask you about something else you say. Here's what you say we ought to invest in. Instead of funding the police, here's what we ought to invest in. We need to invest in programs that acknowledge the need for safe space initiatives led by lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. What's two-spirit?
Well, look, I don't know exactly. You guys are pulling some interesting quotes.
This
here.
is from your report.
If you look at the report, the focus is on investing in violence intervention, outreach workers.
What is you say that you shouldn't invest in the police, but we ought to invest in two-spirit community programs that acknowledge two-spirit.
We are not going to discriminate.
What is that?
We're not going to discriminate against any nonprofit.
What is a two-spirit? What is two-spirit? You say don't fund the police.
What sounded at first like another partisan exchange quickly became a broader argument about trust, transparency, and what public safety actually means in communities that live with violence every day.
I want to talk about some of these policies that have gotten to where we are today. Mr. Jackson, if I could just start with you. You were deputy director in the Biden White House for gun violence and a special assistant to the president. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're also affiliated with the Community Justice Action Fund. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm also a survivor of gun violence.
You were their executive director. When was that, the Community Justice Action Fund?
2021 to 2023.
And you're affiliated with them now?
Yes, as executive advisor.
Okay. The Community Justice Action Fund, do you disclose your donors?
Yes.
All of the donors are public?
Yes.
You're funded by the Tides Advocacy Group, among others?
They're a fiscal sponsor.
This is right.
They handle our HR.
Yeah. This is a George Soros funded group.
No.
He's one of the donors.
No.
He's a donor to the Tides Advocacy Group.
Yeah, that's our fiscal sponsor. So they handle our HR, our back office, our operations.
Great. Okay. Great. So in other words,
we're one of 300 organizations.
Right. That they run. You are a subset
we
of
pay
them.
Pay them to be a fiscal sponsor.
Well, you are a subset of that organization, which he helps to fund. Right. Okay. All right, just wanted to get a level set here. So I want to ask you about some of the policies that you've advocated because they're exactly what we see implemented in these blue cities, like defunding the police.
No.
Oh, indeed.
We advocate for
Wait, I haven't asked a question yet. We'll get to. I've got a lot of questions, believe me, and I'll give you time. So let's talk about this report that you issued when you were executive director, a policymaker's playbook. And I'll ask you to enter it into the record, Mr. Chairman. Great.
Without objection.
Thank you. In this report, you advocate, and I quote now, defunding the police because the long-term goal is fundamentally to reimagine how the state serves its citizens in the project of public safety. You go on to say police departments traumatize residents through a destructive cycle of racist over-policing, and the answer is not to add any more money to police budgets. Talk to me about, why is it that denying policing to the most vulnerable communities is a solution? I know that's what the blue cities are doing, but why is that a good idea?
Well, look, I in no way stand with defunding law enforcement.
That's what your report says.
Sheriff Mike Sheridan, who taught me how to drive when I was 16 years old.
Wait. Your report, when your executive director said you wanted to defund the police, do you renounce this report? Mr. Jackson, do you renounce the report that you authored as executive director? Here it is.
You're the second senator to bring up an op-ed or
this isn't an op-ed. This is your report, a policymaker's playbook to reduce gun violence without policing communities.
Okay.
Community Justice Action Fund, copyright 2023, when you were executive director. Now you say you don't know anything about it. Now you say that you haven't heard of it, just like the Democrats who all of a sudden say, oh, we're all for the police. They've been advocating defunding them for years.
Okay, well, you can look at documents or you can look at results.
My question is, do you renounce this report now? You say you no longer agree with this.
And my answer is that I led the efforts to invest $42 billion in law enforcement.
You've advocated defunding the police as executive director of an organization that you still lead and are affiliated with.
Never see me advocate for that directly. What you see me advocate for
what is this,
a comprehensive approach to reducing violence.
Right. The comprehensive approach is defunding the police, which is what this says.
The entire time.
This is so typical of what the Democrats do now. After your policies have transparently failed and led to the deaths of millions of Americans, now you say you've never heard of defunding the police. Your own report recommends it on page after page after page. Let me ask you about something else you say. Here's what you say we ought to invest in. Instead of funding the police, here's what we ought to invest in. We need to invest in programs that acknowledge the need for safe space initiatives led by lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. What's two-spirit?
Well, look, I don't know exactly. You guys are pulling some interesting quotes.
This is from your report.
If you look at the report, the focus is on investing in violence intervention, outreach workers.
What is you
victim
say? You say that
services.
you shouldn't invest in the police,
So,
but we
yeah,
ought to
so
invest
these-
in
so-
two-spirit community programs that acknowledge
Look,
two-spirit.
we are not going to
What
discriminate
is
against.
that?
We're not going to discriminate against any nonprofit that
What
wants
is
to
a
help us
two-spirit?
prevent violence in
What
our
is
community.
two-spirit? You say don't fund the police, but do fund programs that create safe spaces for two-spirit people. What is? I just want to know. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Well, I honestly, I'm not completely aware of the language or the
You wrote
spirit
the
of how that was
report?
written. But what I'm telling you is that what we
What is a
advocate for.
two-spirit individual? I mean, really, this is your policymaker's playbook. You are the witness called by the Democrats on this committee, so I assume you reflect their views.
Well,
you don't want to fund the police. You want to fund safe spaces for two-spirit individuals. What is a two-spirit person?
I feel like I'm looking at a two-faced individual because you talk about
Oh,
reducing
no, sir.
violence.
You're looking at somebody who's
You're also
reading you
speaking
your
out
own
against
words, and I'd
violence
like to hear an
prevention
answer.
programs.
Here's the answer. The answer is you don't have any solutions. You want to invest in gobbledygook and take away money from police officers who actually keep our communities safe, and when you're called on the record, you deny it. It's all
We
there in
invested
black and
law
white, and
enforcement.
your
We
record is
invested
there in black and
community-based
white,
solutions.
and it's a disgrace.
We reduced homicides by 31%, and as someone who's been shot and nearly killed, I take offense that you would think that
I
the
take
last
offense
13
that you won't
years
answer my
we're not
questions,
focused on
that you
reducing
deny your
violence.
own words, and that you are leading this committee astray. And frankly, sir, your policies are absurd. They're absurd.
I don't think we're getting any.
Before we proceed, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on context-driven reporting like this. It really helps us keep doing this work. Hawley then turned his attention to Gregory Jackson Jr., a former deputy director in the Biden White House who focused on gun violence prevention. Jackson is not just a former official, he is also a survivor of gun violence and a longtime advocate through the Community Justice Action Fund. That background is important because it explains why Democrats often point to voices like his, people who have lived the issue, not just studied it. But it also explains why Hawley pressed so hard on accountability and consistency. The confrontation centered on a report produced by Jackson's organization while he was executive director, a policy playbook that argues for shifting resources away from traditional policing and toward community-based violence prevention. Hawley framed this as defunding the police, tying it to crime trends in major cities and accusing advocates of retreating from their earlier positions now that public opinion has shifted. Jackson pushed back, insisting he does not support defunding law enforcement and pointing to investments in police funding during the administration. That contradiction, the written policy versus the spoken defense, became the heart of the exchange. To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand the policy debate beneath the shouting. Groups like the Community Justice Action Fund argue that policing alone cannot solve gun violence. They promote violence interruption programs, mental health services, housing stability, and community-led initiatives as ways to prevent shootings before they happen. Critics like Hawley argue that reducing or even freezing police funding while crime rises leaves the most vulnerable neighborhoods exposed. This is not just a budget fight, it is a disagreement about what actually keeps people safe. One moment that caught public attention involved language in the report about funding safe spaces led by LGBTQ and Two-Spirit communities. For viewers unfamiliar with the term, Two-Spirit is a phrase used by some indigenous communities to describe people who embody both masculine and feminine spirits, and it is often connected to cultural identity rather than modern political labels. Hawley seized on this language to argue that the policy recommendations were detached from the everyday realities of crime victims. Jackson appeared unprepared to explain the terminology, which only fueled the perception that advocates were out of touch or unwilling to defend their own proposals clearly. This is where the exchange became bigger than either man. Hawley's strategy was to frame progressive gun policy as ideological and evasive, full of jargon and unwilling to stand by its own words. Jackson's response leaned on lived experience and outcomes, pointing to declines in homicide rates and his personal history as proof that his approach is serious and sincere. Both were speaking past each other, but both were speaking to audiences far beyond the hearing room. For viewers trying to make sense of this, here is the key takeaway. The fight is not simply about whether to fund police or not. It is about whether public safety should be defined primarily through enforcement or through prevention, and whether policymakers are being honest about the trade-offs involved. When advocates soften language under pressure, they risk losing credibility. When critics reduce complex programs to slogans, they risk ignoring solutions that might actually work alongside policing. As this debate continues into an election year, exchanges like this one will keep happening, and they will keep getting louder. Our job is to slow it down, add context, and help you see what is really being argued beneath the sound bites. If that's valuable to you, make sure you subscribe now so you stay informed with reporting that goes deeper than the clip. We'll continue to follow how these policy battles translate into real-world consequences for communities that can't afford empty talking points, and we'll break it all down right here.